These are corrugated roofing panels that I'm using to make my vegetable beds. I'll also use similar type of panels on roofs for chicken coops, things like that. So these have to be cut. And if you read the manufacturer's directions, they say you can cut with a utility knife or saws, things like that. The easiest way I have found to cut these is to use a circular saw. And in the circular saw, I have just a fine blade, plywood, laminate, plastic blade. However, got one modification I've had to do with that. The plywood blade has these fine teeth that when it's mounted in a circular saw, they angle up and it rotates from the bottom to the top. With the plastic laminate, that rotation catches the plastic and it'll cause it to chip, it'll cause it to fracture. And just to show, this is a bigger teeth blade, so you can see it's the same concept. If it's rotating the way the circular saw normally changes, it's grabbing that plastic and pulling it up, and that causes it to chip. If the blade is reversed in the saw, it doesn't grab the plastic as much. Especially with the finer blade saw, it's more like filing into a file cutting into the plastic instead of a saw blade. The same thing like this. I can run my hand along the blade when it's going that way, which is backwards, mounted in its saw. If I go that way, it digs into my hand, and that would be chipping my hand really bad. Don't recommend either. Most of my panels I'm cutting crossways across the corrugations. So I've laid out some panels on some 4x4s to keep it up off of the ground so my saw blade won't hit what's underneath here. Because it's so windy today, I've had to clamp the panels to the 4x4s just to keep them from blowing off while I'm setting things up. Right now, I have 3 panels nested here together, lined up right here. I've been able to cut 4 at a time. After that, it seems like the blade wants to melt the plastic more. So 3 is a good comfortable number to work with on these cross cuts. I know the base of my saw is 5 inches from this edge to the blade itself. So I want to put a straight edge. The distance I'm cutting the panels plus the 5 inches. These panels I'm cutting to 18 inches. So my mark I make is at 23 inches, 18 plus 5. Make a mark on either side. And a pencil works good for this. You can see it when you're laying it out, but it doesn't show on the panel afterwards. It wipes off if you need it to. For my straight edge, I just have a scrap piece of plywood. In this case, it's MDF. It has a manufactured cut edge that I mark. I've cut the other edge. It's pretty straight, but just so I always make sure I use the manufactured edge on something like this to make sure I get the straightest cut possible. I line that up with the marks, and I'll stick a clamp, spring clamp, just to hold it in place on the other side. And then make sure that I'm supported where the saw is going to be pushing down. That's 3 panels cut together, very smooth cut on that end. I'll continue to cut these panels. When I'm using it on the vegetable bed project, I will make sure that those cut edges are always on the inside of an overlap. So the manufactured edge is nice and straight, is what you see on the outside.